Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
5 Live Boxing.
Welcome to 5 Live Boxing, 24 hours before we are live in Leeds for Josh Warrington's attempt to win back his world featherweight title against Spain's truly remarkable Kiko Martinez. 10 fights in the Leeds arena. This will be the 11th. He won the world title outdoors with the Kaiser Chiefs at Ellen Road. He fought in front of 25,000 adoring fans at Headingley Rugby League Club. He is Leeds. He is Leeds boxing. But this is the most important fight of his life. We hear from Josh on the show. And Lee Selby, the man who lost his world title to Josh that night at Ellen Road, he joins me from Argentina. Selby is in a world title final eliminator for the lightweight championship, and he's also in the hardest fight of his career. It's another must-win fight. And Eddie Hearn, the promoter, gives us an update on Anthony Joshua against Alexander Usyk. I'm Steve Bunce, and this is 5 Live Boxing. Okay, those are the facts and figures. Now we can have some fun. We've got the details out of the way. Now we can start to relax and hear from the boxers and talk to a boxer. I'm joined by local idol and former world champion Ant Croller. And it seems like a long time ago that I used to refer to him by his nickname, which was $1 Million Croller. You don't go by $1 Million Croller anymore, do you, Ant?
I don't, mate. I don't. It's long gone.
Lovely nickname, though, wasn't it?
It was. It worked well for us. But that's certainly not the bank account no more, mate. But all good.
$1 Million Croller. Anyway, I saw you yesterday at the press conference in Leeds. Didn't get a chance to speak to you.
Yep.
You were busy. I was busy. Let me ask you this first of all. This was the press conference for Josh Warrington against Kiko Martinez. Let me ask you this. What was your first impressions from seeing the two of them together on the stage, looking at, trying to get an insight into them? Because you still think like a fighter, even though you've retired. I know that.
Yeah, well, I was there. I was at the public workout as well, Steve. And I'll be honest, I was... I'm good pals with Josh, but I'd not really seen him for a bit, but I thought he had a real good look to him. Freshness. He didn't look overworked. He looked very sort of, it looked like he had plenty to go. Still, I knew he was near the weight as well. And then he looked good on Thursday. I think very promising. Very, very promising.
He did look in good shape, but what's more,
fantastic.
I know you had a chat with him yesterday, just like I did.
Yeah.
He's calm, isn't he? In fact,
very.
I'll put this to you. He's the calmest I've ever known him before any fight.
I believe that, and I think you forget now, we know how long Kiko's been around, but Josh, very experienced now. You just mentioned it, 10th, 11th time that he's been to that arena.
11th time from this arena, but it's basically 10 years of English, British, Commonwealth, European and world title fights. It's a decade of excellence.
Steve, I think we both was. We was there, it was on a Wednesday night. It was a Wednesday night in Leeds at the arena, and you thought, how's this going to work on a Wednesday night? And I think Eddie thought, wow. This is really going to work, and it did, and it took off with Eddie, with Frank. It took off in a big, big way. But he's just, and I think just speaking to him, and I always say his father doesn't get enough credit. Sean O'Hagan, I think,
Big Sean,
a fantastic coach, and I think because of his character, he's a joker. And I said, speaking to him, he says, genuinely, and he said it on air, and he said it to me, he says, this is the best camp I can remember, and you can see physically he always looks in amazing shape. But I think it looks really well, but Kiko Martinez is it's an amazing story.
How do you start to talk about Kiko? Because we'll talk about him in a moment. We're going to hear from Josh in a second. Here's Kiko. He's 36. That's not unusual. It's maybe the top end for a featherweight,
yes,
but it's not unusual.
Certainly.
What's unusual, Anne? Okay, is the stats. Close your eyes. I like to do that. Close your eyes. 55 fights he's had, right? Wow. 43 wins, 10 defeats. He's now a world champion. So that means he won a world title in his 55th fight. So I had a look at that. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to start looking at that. Yeah. So, okay, quickly, I haven't asked you to prepare for this. I'm going to try and catch you. How many men can you think have won a fight in their 55th or over? 55th fight, 56th fight, 57th fight? Just have a guess. Just have a think.
For the first, for the
first or second or third.
No,
time,
you think
anytime.
you mentioned Chavez. There's not many you can think of.
So Julio Cesar Chavez, Manny Pacquiao,
yes,
obviously.
Pacquiao, of course.
I'm going to throw one at you from the 50s, the heavyweight, Jersey Joe Walcott.
It's very, very few and far.
It's one of the smallest clubs in boxing.
Of course, yeah. Wow, yeah, because obviously, is that The second time?
Second
Kiko?
time, yeah.
Yeah, 2 times.
And here's the thing
Obviously,
about
we've seen
Kiko. Before we, I mean, I find him remarkable, Kiko, and I think it's really worth giving him just a little bit of credit.
Yeah.
He's had 11 fights where for titles or in eliminators. In people's backyards. And I've got to tell you, there's backyard and there's backyard. And you were the king, and I don't mind embarrassing you, you were the king of whatever they called the MEN Arena back then, okay? And you filled that, not just with people that paid money, you filled that with fans. And just like Ricky did in the same venue, you filled it with people that adored you, you filled it with people that fought I mean, people left fights that they needed to go home to bed for 2 days to recover. It was excessive. But no disrespects to you. This atmosphere
it's
in
mental.
Leeds,
It's crazy.
Off the scale, isn't it?
I said, it's unbelievable. And obviously with the big Manchester Leeds rivalry, but I can admit it is absolutely crazy. It's crazy. And I always say, you know, the night that Josh won his world title, can you imagine this, Steve? So the Kaiser Chiefs saying you win, but not just that. I think Lucas Radebe, who's the Leeds captain,
he walks
when
him.
Josh was a kid, can you imagine that pressure to feed off that? And I think, do you know the night, nothing against Mitch O'Lara, do you know the night that in fight camp, when it's certain fighters got hit with lack of atmosphere.
This is when he lost last year in front of no crowd,
in front of no one,
in front of massive
so
crowd.
How can you imagine, you know, marching on together comes on and Josh is singing that alone? It must have felt so odd.
And I tell you, I was there that night. It was at Wembley when he lost to Mitch O'Lara last February. And what was really weird is you could hear him singing.
Yeah.
That was the weirdest thing. This is a man who I've seen walk out in front of 11,000 10 times. This is a man I've seen walk out in front of 35,000 people where you can't hear yourself think. Suddenly, he's coming down the ramp to the ring
voice.
and I can hear him singing the song. Anyway, I spoke to Josh at the press conference on Thursday. Now, it is an odd business, boxing. It has to be said. It's a very strange business. Kiko and Warrington too. Who'd have thought?
When I walked out the ring against Kiko Martinez 5 years ago, I didn't think I'd be fighting him for my old world title.
In the same ring?
Yeah, in the same ring. It's in the same ring, in the same venue, in the same arena. But he's called for his fight. He wants his fight. Obviously, that ghost of his has not gone away. So it's a chance for him to put it right. But I've grown since we last boxed. You know, I've only boxed better calibre of opponents. Dennis Allan, Lee Selby, Carl Frampton. So...
It seems to me, Josh, everyone's trying to get you to say how much pressure you're under. I tried it on the pod. Eddie's tried it on the top table. It's not working. You're not falling for that I'm under pressure thing. You're just saying, well, I'm just Josh. I'm doing it.
This is it, and I think I've taken that approach to camp as well. It's not been a case of, this is the big IBF world title. Now, I know that some people need that as a motivation, but I know what I'm dealing with here. I'm dealing with Kiko Martinez, who brings a tough fight. But instead of me getting worked up mentally, just train hard. When the night comes, be ready, go do the business, win the fight.
I know this is an odd thing, but you can't dislike him. You can get, he's your opponent, he's the man you've got to beat. But you can't dislike. You don't look across at him like you have, like you could in the past with other opponents, and dislike him. How can you dislike Kiko Martinez?
I think it'd be false. It'd be false, Steve. Listen, we shook hands yesterday. I've shared the room with him once before. He's been part of the sport for 18 years.
Yeah.
You know, like you say...
He's a legend.
Exactly. That's not to say that we aren't going to have a barnstorm of a fight. Yeah. Me and Carl shook hands. We were talking behind presses, behind closed doors.
Then
we had a fight here. So, listen, things that are starting to get eaten up because it's getting nearer. But we put that to one side. We knocked 7 bells out of each other for 12 rounds. And after that, we'll have a drink after, drink of water or something.
We thought we had a good night at Ellen Road. We had the Chiefs. We had the Chief. We had the Chiefs. It was amazing walking out.
Double Chiefs.
But this is going to be special as well, isn't it? I mean, I'm excited. Just that moment when you pop out and they pick you up, 12,000 fans are singing. I tell you what, Josh, it's not bad, is it?
Listen, Eddie says it's one of the best atmospheres in British boxing. I think it's one of the best atmospheres in world boxing. When you're talking about the event, it's not just an event, we're going to go see him because I can say I've done it. They're there because they want me to win. Yeah. They're there because they know what's at stake. So, I can't wait to be there. 11th time I've been there. I'm part of furniture,
8 years. More than Tom Jones.
Yeah, more than Tom Jones.
I actually used a line in the newspaper that made me chuckle, which is terrible. If you write something, you shouldn't laugh at your own jokes. I said, this is the type of fight that people will tell their grandchildren about and say, I was there the night Josh regained the world title. I think it's that type of night.
It is, and it's one of them what becomes like folktale, like kind of legendary, certainly for the city. So, I've got to make sure I do the business on Saturday night.
He's got to make sure he does the business on Saturday night, and we'll talk about whether or not we think he'll do the business on Saturday night. But I want to pick up on a couple of things he said there, and if I can. He talked about it being legendary and like a folktale. Well, again, I'm going to go back to you. I don't care if I embarrass you. I'm not going monkeys about embarrassing you. What you did a couple of occasions at the Manchester Arena on some of those nights, and there's that very famous picture of you when you won the world title, taken by, I forget her name, but it's a brilliant picture. You know
Karen,
what I mean?
yes,
yeah,
Karen
and it's
Priestley.
just off the scale. And if I see that, if I look at that long enough and in the right emotional mood, I'll just cry my eyes out looking at the picture. Now, are you aware of that, Anne? I mean, can you really block out the fact that there's 18,000 people on your back, backing you, cheering you, with every single thing they've got? Can you block that out, Anne?
Not fully, no way. Not fully, but I think you've got to feed off that, Steve. Do you know what I mean? You've got to feed off that and turn it into a positive. I mean, not play up to it. You've got to stick to a game plan, not, you land a shot or two or you get hit a shot or two coming away from the game plan. And that's going back to what I say. That's why I think Josh Warrington is one of them who feeds off the atmosphere to them fight in front of 23 people or something in a Wembley arena. It's like, it was a mad...
Great point.
The difference from them fighting there to fighting Lara a second time in Headingley. I know we got cut short, but it was night and day.
It was night and day. Now the interesting thing is about Kiko Martinez is that, and I spoke to Carl Frampton about this because he's obviously fought the pair of them, and he fought Kiko twice in Belfast. He stopped him once inside the Odyssey, but it was a really hard fight, a gruesome fight. And then he beat him on points for the world title outdoors when Kiko was the champion. 20,000 people from Belfast. Now, what he said to me, Carl, is he said Kiko doesn't care. He genuinely doesn't care. It's not like he plays the crowd. He doesn't play a baddie, not like a bad wrestler. Yeah. But it's like he said he's unfazed by it. And I've seen a bit of that in Kiko. He just doesn't care.
Yeah. He's not mired whatsoever. I remember him. But that, and this is what's more amazing, like, you think of those fights. The night in Manchester, you were there when Scott Quigg walked onto an absolute bomb of a shot.
In the first round.
Who would think these years later, we've seen him win a world title not long back, and he's going again with Josh. He's road warrior. I think he certainly deserves that tag, doesn't he?
Yeah, he road warrior. He won the title last November in a fight that, let's be absolutely honest, he was fighting Kid Galahad, who'd managed to win the belt that it's quite confusing. If you don't know much about boxing, it's really confusing, and I make no apologies about the way boxing works. So basically, Josh Warrington woke up on January the 1st, 2021 as the IBF featherweight champion of the world. And for a variety of reasons, he managed to relinquish that title and take a non-title fight against Maurizio Lara. He got stopped by Maurizio Lara, and his title was fought for and won by Kid Galahad, who Josh had previously beaten. This sounds like a soap opera. It's boxing. Boxing is a soap opera. And then Kid Galahad gets himself a very easy first defence in his hometown of Sheffield against Kiko Martinez, who's a veteran of 54 fights, who's 36 years of age, who's got no chance, except he knocks him spark out 6 seconds into the
One of the
round.
knockouts of the year.
One of the knockouts of the year.
Yeah.
So let's move on to it now because I'm conscious of time. Actually, I'll be honest with you. And I'm not really conscious of time, but it is about time we started talking about who's going to win and who's going to lose. The producer is in there pulling his hair out, young Pat. So quite seriously, Josh beat him the first time, but has admitted that he was in a right state for a couple of days afterwards,
and it was very close.
One judge gave it a draw.
Yes.
What does he have to do to win the second fight? What does he have to do to win his belt back and delight that hometown faithful?
I think Josh Warrington, defensively, very good fighter. And I think with any fight, you can't switch off. But with Kiko Martinez, as Kid Galahad found out, you cannot switch off for 1 second. It only takes one shot with him. It takes one shot with him to turn this fight on its head. And when you're on about the importance of not getting sucked in by the crowd, I think I think Josh is going to have to be very cautious early on, but he's also at the same time going to have to put Kiko in his place. He's going to have to put him. Kiko. There will come a time where he has to engage a bit with him, but
So take a risk, you're saying.
Defensively, he's got to be so good. He has. Or Kiko will just come, and he'll keep on coming. But I do believe, it's an hard one, and we said it fair. We thought when Kiko and Galahad got announced, we thought, how have they got away with that? Yeah. How have they got away with that? And wow, how wrong was we? But into that fight, he wasn't, until the shot landed, Kid Galahad was in control, very much in control, wasn't
That's what bangers do.
Bang.
That's what bangers
maybe you load him in.
You remember the Deontay Wilder expression? You've got to be good for 36 minutes. I've got to be good for 1 second.
Yes.
And that's what happened in that fight. Josh Warrington against Kiko Martinez for the IBF Featherweight Championship of the World, live and exclusive on 5 Live. It's 10 p.m. tomorrow. You can't get a ticket. They've genuinely sold out. It will be a very special night. Now, I mentioned Lee Selby there. Now, Lee Selby is fighting in Buenos Aires on Saturday night. And he's fighting in a legendary venue called the Estadio Luna Park. Boxing fans will just know instantly it was Carlos Monzon's home ground. It was where Carlos Monzon did his business. I think it's 11,000, that venue. I think it's one of the greatest venues. I've never been to it. It's on my bucket list of venues to go to. It really is. And he's got this fight, Lee Selby. It's a final eliminator for the lightweight championship of the world. And he's got to fight a guy called Gustavo Daniel Lemos, who's unbeaten in 27 fights. It's his hometown. There's 11,000 fans there, and it will be hostile. Now, I managed to speak to Lee, and because I wanted to sort of get a sense of if he thought he could win, and I really mean that nicely. So I wanted to know from him to make sure that he knows he can win.
If I can box to my best ability, I believe I can beat anybody at my weight. It's just bringing the best out of me. I've struggled to do that. There's been times in the gym when I've sparred and I've been flawless. And if I can bring them spars to the ring, I'll beat anyone.
Let's go back to your last fight, the fight before this, when you fought the Australian, George Kambosos. There was nothing in the fight. He gets it on a split decision. You could have easily got it. And who'd have thought that 13 months later, he'd beat Teofimo Lopez in one of the biggest shocks, and what's more, make millions. It seems like a bit of a fantasy league.
Wow. To be honest, it is what it is. That's boxing. Nothing ever surprises me in boxing. It's a crazy sport.
And is it your understanding that when you beat Lemos, that you get a crack, or you're pushed to get a crack at Kambosos? Is that why you're taking this risk?
That's why I'm taking the risk, just to get this win, and I'm guaranteed a world title shot next. Whether it's Kambosos or not, I'll be IBF manager challenger. I'll be boxing for the IBF title next.
And you're fighting in this place. I don't know if you know much about the Estadio Luna, right? And you should ask Chris Sanago, who's out there with you. Back in the 70s, a man called Carlos Monzon made that his own citadel. I'm really envious of you fighting in there, because I've always wanted to be ringside in there.
That says a lot of history. And my dad, he's like a boxing fanatic, historian, you could say. And he says if he was to train a young boxer, he would tell him or show him the art of boxing, he'd say to watch Carlos Monzon.
And your dad, by the way, would be absolutely right. Lee, I know you haven't been out there long, but how has it been? How have you been treated? I mean, are they looking after you? Did you see any problems in the next 4 or 5 days when you come face to face with him, or are you just calm Lee Selby?
Just calm Lee Selby, as always. I just do my own thing. I don't see nobody. I just go out, me, Chris, and Tony. We go to the gym, we work. We go for walks around the city. That's it. We do our own thing. We don't get involved with no one. We just keep ourselves to ourselves, and we just get on with the job.
And what is it that Gustavo does best, Lee, in your opinion? What is it that makes him such a dangerous opponent on Saturday night?
He can punch. He's aggressive. He keeps coming. He's 10 years my junior.
Yeah.
But I don't play into that. I don't think that makes a difference. But he can punch. He's aggressive. And there is home crowd behind him.
But all of those things means that, in all fairness, he can put himself under an awful lot of pressure, Lee. And sometimes fighters respond differently to that pressure. And as much as I agree, I know he's unbeaten and I know he's got all those stoppages, but when you actually analyse the opponents, he's not beat the kind of guys you've beaten, and he's not shared the ring with the kind of guys you've shared the ring with.
totally different class. You look at it. You look at my last, say, 20 odd fights. You got a combined record. Well, I haven't looked at a combined record, but it'd be like bloody 300 odds to about 15.
Yeah, exactly.
All like former champions. I've done 20 12-round championship fights back to back, 5 world title defenses, 6 world title fights, the three eliminators. The list goes on.
You can come back with a win. You really can, Lee.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. I'm not here to make up the numbers.
He's not there to make up the numbers, but some of those numbers he gave us were impressive. He's a terrific fighter, Lee Selby. And if you were listening to that, you might have noticed, or you might have felt that I was pushing him quite hard on how he's been treated. Well, Ant Croller's across from me smiling, and there's a reason why we did that. We both have a mutual friend, a boxer called Martin Murray, who went down and challenged for a world title in Argentina and lost to Sergio Martinez a few years ago. And he got, I think he got stitched up, but that's neither here nor there. But the real story was what happened to the travelling contingent. And talking to Ant before we came on air, you were reminding me, Ant, of just how dangerous it can be fighting in, and I make no apologies if you're listening to this and you're an Argentinian screaming that I'm accusing your country, men and women of things. I am telling you, Ant, it is a very hostile place to go and fight an important fight.
Very. They do not get much more hostile. From the stories I heard from that night, and this is from a man, Martin Cullen, who streamed strength with, hard man, Steve, hard man who'd done some of the toughest doors. Listen, weekend in, weekend out, he was having to turn away rugby players and doing that. So he's not scared of confrontation.
He's not squeamish.
Not squeamish, in great shape. Big bloke as well, big. And he said what's happened after the fight. He's got back to the changing rooms. He said, in bits. He said, I'm not afraid to say it. He said, and I phoned home and I've gone. He's phoned his wife, Jill. Listen, I'm fine. It's okay. I'll ring you when I'm back to the hotel.
Assuming that she'd seen the aggravation and the problems.
Don't worry, I'm okay. And she's like, what you on about? What you on about?
That was a relief.
You what?
But so basically, just to paraphrase here, this is a hostile place, and he's going into this in legendary stadium which Carlos Monza made as I said there, his citadel called the Estadio Luna Park, against this guy Gustavo Daniel Lemos. Now, you don't need to know a lot about him. All you need to know about him is that he's unbeaten. He's had 27 fights. He's stopped most of those opponents, and he's the local fighter. A good Lee Selby can win.
Without a doubt.
He needs some other things to go his way. And let's leave it at that so we don't get in trouble.
Yes, it does. And listen, we know how hostile. I can only imagine how hostile it's going to be. Like, from hearing those nights, it wasn't safe. It wasn't safe that night. So, if, let's be honest, Lee's got to... Do we fancy him to get a decision out there? Not. But it's... Listen, people might have arguments about some of the scorecards we've seen or in times, but it's going to be unbelievable hostile. Do I believe Lee's got the right attitude for this kind of job? Yeah.
And just to say that Lee Selby lost to a man called George Kambosos. Narrowly, there was nothing in it. And George Kambosos went on to fight, as I said there, Teofimo Lopez. And when he beat Teofimo Lopez...
The fine lines.
Absolutely, the finest line in boxing. He made about $2 million. So we wish Lee Selby all the best. He need every single bit of that. Now, last September, Alexander Usyk beat Anthony Joshua to win the world heavyweight title. It was a great shock. 1 month ago, Ukraine was invaded. That was a decent enough shock. And Usyk switched fighting from boxing to being part of the frontline defense in Ukraine. In fact, in Kiev. Now, he's just announced, and it's in the last 2 or 3 hours, that he will be leaving Ukraine to prepare for a rematch. Now, at the press conference yesterday, I spoke to Eddie Hearn about this when I met him.
I do know that Alexander Usyk is ready to start camp for a fight with Anthony Joshua. I expect that fight to take place in June. I think almost certainly now that will be the next fight for AJ, which he's extremely happy about. He's ready to go. And we are dealing with Alex Krasik and the team to finalise the location, and hopefully next week we can give you some news to say this fight is on and it will take place on this date in this location, and like I said, almost certain that it's going to be AJ Usyk next.
And AJ is in camp at the moment.
Been in camp since the Usyk fight. I mean, since the last fight. Been wanting this fight, turned down a huge amount of money not to step aside for this fight. It's the only fight he wants, but he wants to be active and he wants to fight in June. So if Usyk wasn't ready, he was prepared to take another fight. Now that looks like that's not going to be the case, and he's over the moon because he wants a chance to try and win his World Championship belts back.
over the moon, wants a chance to win his world title belts back. I expect that fight to be outdoors again, maybe early June, maybe that June 11th. I'll put it to you, Anthony Crolla, as we come to the end of our half an hour, and it's quite simple. He got it wrong in the first fight. Can he change what he got wrong and win the rematch?
Can he? Yes. Will he? It's a big ask. Steve, it's a big ask. Let's be honest, how Usyk finished the fight, and do you know what else as well? Steve? Get into what's going on, but you almost feel like he'll be fighting for a nation as well, don't you? I think it's a bigger ask.
Well, he will. How are you going to boo? How are you going to boo the Ukrainian anthem? How are you going to boo him walking to the ring with Ukrainian flags? How are you going to boo that? It's going to be ridiculous.
Before all this happened, with what's going on in the world, Usyk was making that crossover. He's a great character. He's a great guy. They love him.
And by the way, I'm not endorsing booing, but people do boo whether you like it or not. You know, the opponent comes in front of 70,000 people and the Brits boo. Yeah, it's just the way it works. I mean, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying it happens. Usyk, will his mind be? I understand what you're saying. He's got the motivation. He can give some money that he makes to the fund. But is his mind anywhere near where it needs to be, Ant?
I mean,
listen, if you have a few personal problems in your life, could you fight in front of 20,000 people?
And the rest, the build up, the fight week, he's going to be constantly reminded of it. I think that thing can only help Anthony Joshua, but I just believe his character, how laid back he is. Steve, I was there the night he fought Tony Bellew. The night before, I was in the hotel. Someone set the alarm off. Honestly, and it sounded like air sirens. He walked down to breakfast that morning. I was sat with Eddie and I was fighting on the bill. He come up to Eddie, taps him. Good one, Eddie. And it was that was it. He laughed about it. And I thought, this guy's just unfazed. Very different, I know, but...
So what we need as we come to the last minute or so here, and what we need, and try and do this quickly, is we need AJ to be AJ, to be big and strong and brave and take some risks and stop trying to look good. Just get the job done.
He's got, totally. It's just easier said than done, but he's got to use the roughhouse tactics. If he has to hit him low at times, hit arms,
and push
elbows,
him.
He's got to let make his size count. Make his size count. He has to.
Yeah, I spent some time with Lennox Lewis in Las Vegas, which sounds like me bragging. It's not. It's just me telling you the way life is in the boxing business. I spent some time with Lennox Lewis in Las Vegas, and he said, just use your strength. Just use your strength. Listen, Anne, it's been a pleasure and a delight having you in. I really mean that. Look, can't wait to see you. I see you in Leeds. So we are in Leeds tomorrow night on 5 Live, 10 p.m. for the rematch between Josh Warrington and Kiko Martinez. The first time it was a hellacious 12 rounds. This will be more because you know why? There's far more at stake. It's that simple. That's at 10 p.m. Ebony Bridges, the Australian swearer, as I like to call her, she fights for a world title on the undercard. Perhaps we'll get that on. This has been 5 Live Boxing with me, Steve Bunce.
Discover the next big thing.